My guest today is Ilya. We both worked together at AWS 10 years ago, and after that, he has worked with companies like Google, built his own app, Metacast, and I'm so excited to talk to him today. Ilya, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lena. Yeah, happy to see you again after all of those years. And yeah, and thank you for having me here.
Wonderful. Tell our listeners more about you. What are you doing these days and about your journey?
Yeah, so I've just recently started actually a new role. So I'm now at Microsoft. I'm a principal product manager working in Microsoft security on an agentic platform that powers some of our AI experiences. And before that, like you said, I built my startup with another person you used to work with at Amazon, Arnab. So we co-founded a consumer app called Metacast. It's a podcast app that helps you extract knowledge from podcasts. It has transcripts, it has summaries. You can really use it to learn from podcasts, not just listen to them and forget everything that you've heard. So people use it for like learning languages. They use it for like journalists use it, researchers use it, and just like I guess control freaks use it. People who really want to like remember what they've heard and they want to like document everything. So people like I guess like Arnab and I. So lots of engineers actually use the app. Yeah, and before that I worked at Google where I worked on the Maps API and also in the cloud. And at AWS also worked on the cloud stuff. So yeah, my background is primarily in developer platforms. So even now at Microsoft, I'm kind of going back to that sort of developer platform sort of a role. Yeah, and I also have quite a few years as a BI manager, BI analyst. So kind of pretty good with data, even though these days AI can actually do a lot of that data crunching for you, which is yeah, I'm kind of seeing that job going away these days. So I'm kind of I was lucky to have had that experience without AI, to be honest. Anyway, so that's about me. Yeah.
Wow, so much to unpack there. I'm curious, you wrote so much content on LinkedIn, and one of the posts you created recently was about how you automate flows for your daily life, for things you do, for personal basis as well, using agentic AI. I'm curious if you can tell our listeners more about that. How how you have automated some of the flows using agentic AI on your day-to-day work.
Okay. So here I have to make a caveat, right? So tools like OpenClaw, well, I guess OpenClaw itself is quite popular. So it runs in the background, it does things for you. I don't do any of that. So I am kind of coming from engineering background, also now in security. I just inherently don't trust those tools uh, because you expose your machine to the open internet and the and you know we've all heard all these stories of AI deleting Kubernetes clusters and killing databases, like really screwing people up, right? So I think what people don't realize is that when you open up your machine to the internet, and the interface is inherently non-deterministic language model, you can really shoot yourself in the foot. For most people, it probably won't hurt them, but it can have catastrophic impact if you gave it access to your emails or bank accounts. I mean, people do crazy stuff. I think there is a room for that, but I don't think the way they're doing this right now is sort of secure enough, and also the governance is not there. So I don't do any of that. So I run all of my workflows manually, right? So that I think that is an important caveat. Uh, so what I do is this. I think I probably will start with what I do for work because that is I think maybe more people can relate to that. Uh, so at Microsoft, we use Copilot CL. So we have Copilot, right? We have Copilots everywhere. And but my sort of favorite product there that I use internally is the Copilot CLI, which is kind of like Claude Code, very similar interface, kind of same models. Well, I guess almost same models. We also have OpenAI models, and actually, I'm not sure if I can talk about the Anthropic models here. Let me actually take it back a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We can even talk about that Whisper Flow post you wrote, where you wrote about.
Yeah, but so I'll get to this now. Um, so at work we use Copilot. I use Copilot CLI, which is like a Claude Code, very similar interface. It's in terminal, and I built a bunch of skills that help me do some of my daily sort of routines. Right. So we generally record all of the calls that we have internally and in Microsoft Teams, and those transcripts are available a few minutes after the meeting is over. And so we have tools that allow us to fetch those transcripts. Um, and some people read them, some people summarize them. So what I do, I have a skill that actually I have two different skills. So one skill I have like summarize meeting, right? And I just run a /summarize meeting, and it takes the transcript from that meeting that I pointed to. I just say it's like summarize meeting for daily stand up, for example, right? And this skill, it doesn't just summarize the meeting because that would be not enough for me. It actually, I have actually maybe I need to take a step back about the structure of the thing, right? Because I think that becomes very important. So I have a folder on my computer. It's like an assistant folder, which is also a GitHub repository because it's not a GitHub, it's a Git repository. It's stored locally, but it's a Git repository because I want to have version control for everything that AI does on my machine. And in there, I have a bunch of folders. Like I have a folder like context, where actually I write. Well, I mean, I tell Copilot, and then it writes there, right? I tell like, this is what I'm working on. This is my project. This is my organizational structure. So I give it a lot of context about my actual work in my project. And then in the instructions, I instructed to use that context when it processes other information. So it always processes the information that I give it through the lens of what I'm working on and what is important to me, right? So when I do this summarize meeting skill, it looks for the meeting. Is the meeting like an informational kind of meeting that is kind of generic meeting, right? Maybe like, I don't know, when I joined, there was a kind of HR onboarding, right? So it can just summarize it like it would summarize just any other piece of text. But if that's a meeting about the project that I'm working on, then it will take care, it will do a much longer summary with very specific details, like what's relevant right now, what are the potential risks here, what are the action items. And I have a specific instruction in this skill to also detect if there are any items that were assigned to me during the conversation. And then I have another file called todo.md where it would put the task as a checklist, as a checkbox item, right, for later triage. So I have like an inbox section there, so it knows it needs to put it into inbox. And then I can manually go there and see, okay, so when do I need to do this? And I can prioritize it accordingly. Then it also tracks if I assigned any tasks to anyone. Like, let's say I ask somebody, like, oh, whatever, Jason, can you send me the file with the spec, for example? And then it would extract that, and I have a special like waiting bucket in my to-do, right? Where it would say like, Jason should send you that doc, right? So, and then I have the daily, so I have another skill called /recap. I run at the end of the day. So that thing I would prefer to run it automatically, but I'll eventually figure it out to run it automatically. But I run it at the end of every day. What it does, it goes through all of my emails, all of my Teams messages, all of the transcripts. So transcribes basically it gets all of the transcripts. So if I didn't do it like individually, it will just do it for all of the meetings that I had. It extracts all of the items, but it also looks at, well, Jason actually sent me the file, so it would take that item and move it from waiting to, let's say, like the other bucket. I say like have like a backlog bucket there, right? So like whatever, read JSON's file, right? Or if I need to review it, if I promise that I review it, it would say like yeah, review JSON's file, and then it would also tell me that JSON actually sent me the file, so I can act on that. So that thing is. I'm generally pretty organized, but I'm really bad at actually those like moving things around. So where AI sort of gave me superpower is that I almost have an executive assistant that extracts all of those things, moves them around, shuffles them around, and then it helps me. Oh, actually it also looks at so we have an internal issue tracking system that we use. Uh, Actually, I'm so new at Microsoft. I don't even know if it's internal or it's part of Azure. But so we have an issue tracking system, right? And it knows. I pointed to the board of the project that I'm working on. It also knows which items are assigned to me, and also like sub items that are assigned to other people. But kind of it has this knowledge, right? And it constantly sort of renews that. So then it also can see that or something was assigned to me and it's urgent, or like somebody is asking me for something. So that stuff I can basically my todo.md is my command center now with the help of of that system. But then to make things even more interesting, right? Um, I don't like typing. Um, I like writing, but I don't like typing. So, like the actual process of typing, it hurts my wrist if I type too much. So, and sometimes I just need to talk to. I need to wander around, right, to arrive to a conclusion, right, or to some like a good idea. So what I do, what I set up, and I use it both at home and at work. I first built it for my home workflow, but then I also brought it to work. So with the help of Claude Code, about 6 months ago, I built a CLI tool. It's open source. You can link it in your show notes. People can download and use it if they wish. It's under MIT license, so it's free to use. Um, it uses the Whisper model from OpenAI. So there is a binary called Whisper CPP that can run on your computer. It uses GPUs. It can transcribe audio pretty fast. It takes about 2 gigs of space, but you don't have to pay for anything. The data never leaves your machine. It all runs on your machine, right? So I built that CLI that you just point it to a file and it gives you a transcript. I also use it for podcasts to transcribe podcasts. So I don't have to pay for the transcript. And so I wired up a skill, both my work computer and my home computer, because I use the same package on both. Uh, so I think it's like fetch read prompt. I think that's what I call it, slash read prompt. So what it does, when I record something in a voice recorder on my work machine, it knows that there is this folder where all of those recordings are stored. So when I say read prompt, it keeps track of what was the last file it read, and then it reads only the new files, and it looks there, and it transcribes all of the files automatically, and then takes those transcripts and treats them as prompt. So, for example, right? So somebody sent me a document, and let's say it's a 5-page document, and I want to review it. So previously, how I would do it, right? I would look at the doc, I would read the doc, I would add comments, kind of go back, maybe add some suggestions. So what I do now, I just turn on the voice recorder, and I just talk to it. So I'm reading this doc. Please capture, my notes, and then I just go section by section. I say like, okay, the overview section. So this should be tighter. You can write it, this way, right? And then let's say 5-10 minutes of that content goes into the audio file. Then I execute that script, the read prompt, and then it takes all of those new files, it transcribes them, executes them, and what I get is the output. And usually I try to get all of my outputs in the markdown files so that I can reuse them, and also they become part of the context as well. And then it gives me that summary that out of 5 minutes, it actually gives me maybe like 10 different points, because sometimes I can repeat myself, right? I can repeat myself, or if, let's say, I read the document further and I realize, okay, actually my questions have been answered, I don't have to raise this concern, right? And it knows all of that. And I'm like, okay, so just scratch that. And then it will prioritize the things that I said. And then I can take that and create comments or make edits. That's especially actually helpful when I work on my own documents. Let's say I need to write, like yesterday, I was actually writing a document that described a certain flow for how things should work in our platform, and it had two different options there. So I talked to it first. It wrote the draft, right? The draft. So with AI, it it writes pretty good technical documents, um, but sometimes it's too verbose. There could be hallucinations. So I try to give it a lot of sort of guidance first, right? So I gave it a lot of guidance with voice. It wrote the first draft, and then kind of I went through the document and did the edits through voice. So these are kind of things that like previously I would either spend too much time or I would not just do it, right? But now it sort of comes almost for free, right? So I can spend 10 minutes talking to it, and it makes my work better. So yeah, these are kind of the flows that I have. I guess another thing that I would mention for my home setup, right? I also run everything manually in Cloud Code, but the thing that I always wanted to have, I always wanted to be able to capture my thoughts on the go. Let's say I'm driving and I have an idea for, let's say, idea for a blog post, or or just an idea to do something, idea for a project. So what I do, I wired up. I have another CLI tool that I also vibe coded with Claude that can fetch messages from a Telegram bot. So I have a Telegram bot, and I have a CLI tool that can fetch all the messages there. So if I send voice messages to that bot, that read prompt command that I run on my local machine, it actually first fetches all of the messages from Telegram, saves those files locally, like those audio files. Then it runs the transcribe tool to transcribe all of them. So it's like a batch processing pipeline. I think that's my sort of BI experience comes in, right? So it's like I built it as a pipeline. So fetch, transcribe, and then execute them one by one as prompts. And and then I just tell it what to do. I'm like, so I have this project. Can I create a file in my projects folder called I don't know, transcribe CLI tool.md? And I just talked for 20 minutes and I described what I want to do. And then I would say like, yeah, and recommend me if there are any gotchas here, create a project plan. So then I come back home, I just run read prompt. And then after a few minutes, I can review the thing that it created. And then I can send it another message to like, okay, so like this is wrong. I want this way, that way. And then it creates a plan. And that's especially cool for like those little projects that I sometimes like do for myself, like those CLIs. I would tell it to like write a very detailed plan. So because I use the Opus model, Opus 4.6, such that Sonnet model can actually execute it. So like write it for the intern, write it for the, like for the dump, right? And then split into phases, so I can execute it in phases, and I can review all of that, and then I just like say, well, now execute it, right? After I'm happy with what I'm seeing, and then a couple of hours later, I get a working prototype of something. So I don't create any sort of production software this way, but little CLI tools. Yeah, that's kind of how I manage that. All right, I'll stop here because I've been talking for like 15 minutes, I think.
That's so awesome. Like you gave so many ideas to improve productivity on a daily basis for me as a user, how I can use it for my own use case. I'm curious, when you try to bring others along into this journey, how do you rewire them in this new era? I feel like at Amazon, the two pizza tea model was very popular. I'm curious in this new era, how do you see we can glue everybody together and bring them along the journey? One second,
M-
I'll
m-
tell my son. Ivan, it's disturbing me. It's your voice, footsteps are getting recorded. Please.
yeah, I'm very well familiar with this problem. uh, so my experience has been, I guess I've seen, I guess a few categories of people here, right? So there are the early adopters, people who just I mean, I must admit, I was not an early adopter myself. So maybe I should start with that. So when ChatGPT came out, it was good, but it was still pretty dumb. And the code it wrote was really bad, and you had to like copy paste code. It it was okay, but in many ways it felt like it was also taking away some of my sort of things that I pride myself on, like actually writing actual code. That's how, I mean, I was doing the startup at the time. But my co-founder Arnab, so like I would ask him a question. He was like, "Did you ask ChatGPT?" And I'm like, "No." And then after multiple of those occasions, right? I was like, "Well, maybe he's onto something, right?" So then I started using ChatGPT, and I think it was when the GPT-5 or something came out, or 4.0. That's when it started to become really good. I was like, "Oh wow!" Actually, I think it was 4.0. Um, I was like, actually, like, it makes me more productive. And then that's when I started using it. And then Claude Code came out, and I get goosebumps now because I remember that actually that moment when I launched Claude Code and I started like experimenting with it in the CLI, and that sort of reignited my life, my love for engineering. Because I was sort of I have engineering background and I went to product management, to BI, all of that. So and then during the startup times with Claude Code, it's sort of just that spark. I'm like, wow, I want to go back to engineering because that is just so good, right? So I was sort of in that camp, and I think I'll probably speak for many people now that many people probably were in this kind of state where they were not the early adopters, but after a certain threshold, like something really sparked that desire to actually use the tool because they started to see the utility and the usefulness. And I think with Claude Code also, now Copilot CLI is kind of similar. I find joy from using those tools, even if I work on boring stuff. I don't know. I just that way of communicating with the chatbot in CLI, something in that medium really, I don't know. I get a lot of just pleasure by doing that, from doing that, which I don't get by from the UI tools, or like there's a copilot in VS Code, or there's like a regular Claude. I think there was like a Claude Code app that's not CLI, which I tried once and I just don't like it. Like the CLI, that sort of the terminal experience, that that really excites me. Right, and for many people, maybe they were like different things. Or like recently, actually, I started using ChatGPT in the voice mode. Usually, when I need questions, when I have questions, right? So my phone, I would just send it voice messages, and then it responds back with text, and then I can read those because that's very convenient. But when you're driving, you can't read the response. So on Apple CarPlay, on when you connect it to your car, if you open ChatGPT, it has the conversation mode, which if you use it on your computer or on your phone, it feels slow because reading is so much faster. But when you're driving, you can't read, and you can ask it questions. Like yesterday, I was going to have dinner, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to Lincoln Square. It's 8:15 p.m. How much is parking now? And it's like, yeah, it's like if you go after 8:15, like you have to pay like the full rate of $36. I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm not doing this. I'm parking in Bellevue Square across the street because that's I'll have to walk, but it's free parking. So it's like these kind of things that you can bring assistance in your life in different sort of modalities, right? Like voice is not appropriate for like sitting in front of your computer and just talking. I think it's too slow. But when it talks back to you, but in the car, it's perfect, right? So I think like, and for many people, I guess those trigger points will be different, right? So coming back to your question, right? So I think there are a lot of those sort of late adopters who needed a nudge to be pushed there. There are early adopters like my co-founder Arnab, who's just like all in. He will like try anything. Well, I guess as long as it's secure. So he also doesn't use OpenClaw. Um, um, there are probably people who are sort of less inclined. Um, I have not met many of those. Maybe I'm just being lucky. Like all of my friends are sort of engineers, product managers, kind of some executives. They all understand the value of technology, right? So they're all into this. Though I must say, actually, some of my family they don't use any of that, and I can't blame them for that. I guess like here's the thing, right? If you don't use it in your personal life, that's that's your own business. But I think when you're at work and the organization actually wants to be more productive and more wants to move at a bigger, the faster speed, I think it's unacceptable to not be on board, right? So I think you just as a leader, you sort of you have to f foster that culture, and I think just telling everybody use AI, I think it's counterproductive. I think it's more about you show people what's possible. You kind of do demos. You do maybe like lunch and learn kind of sessions, brown bag sessions, where people come and some of their colleagues tell them about what they've done. Maybe they share some of the workflows. So you want to kind of get people to start using more of that. I think the danger that I'm seeing in kind of in organizations, well, I shouldn't say organizations as plural. Again, I guess where I've seen it in a couple of places, that is just people build their own bespoke workflows, and I think it's a double-edged sword. So on one hand, like there is no standardization. I mean, there are some standard things like for example, development teams, they have agents that do code reviews, right? And then there are certain rules that it sort of looks for code style and all of that, right? So actually, that is really good when it becomes part of the system. So yeah, actually, that's a very good point. So now that's why I like to talk, right? Because like I just talk, and when I talk, I sort of arrive to conclusions, right? So when it's part of the system, like it's part of your pipeline, it does code review, it gives you certain feedback. Maybe it's also part of the sort of your local review process, so you don't actually you catch those sort of problems even before it goes to the pipeline. So that is something that you can like one champion can force this onto the entire organization, right? I mean, you kind of sell it to everybody. Everybody's sort of on board, but somebody has to do it, so then you do it, and then it becomes part of the flow. So I think that is systemic way to like change the system, right? So that is one way to bring an organization on board, especially in engineering discipline. But in a non-engineering discipline, I think it's a bit harder because, like, let's say every product strategy doc is a bit unique, right? Every presentation deck is a bit unique because it's not just the format, right? Not the flow. It's also the style. Because like I write differently from how you write. And also I can write differently for my VP than I write for my direct manager. So because these people have different context, so you have to adjust to that. And I think if AI had all of the information, it would have been able to do a good job, but it doesn't, right? So there is a lot of like sort of human cues, right? Like that for this person, like that particular aspect is very important. So you would emphasize it more, right? You would spend more time on that in your presentation. So and then like AI can do that as long as you give it instructions. But my point is that you can just say, okay, so now everybody uses this skill, this agent for presentations because one size does not fit all. So and that is sort of the other you know, kind of the beauty of coding agents, sort of kind of Copilot CLI or Cloud Code is that you can build your own workflows that work specifically for you, right? So somebody maybe isn't comfortable talking to a computer like I do, right? So they want to type. So they base their workflows on typing, right? Somebody wants to do a PR for every document that they create. So they can set all of that up. And the thing is, obviously it consumes tokens, right? But if it makes a person A more productive, but also I think there is a bit of that sort of dopamine hit that we get from like just having the thing work and do the thing the way we want, and just like I think there's something very human about this whole like experience, even though people say it's like dehumanizing, right? But I think there's something very human about this that we um, I don't know. I think the best analogy I can draw here is like so Arnab, right, my co-founder from Metacast. So he and I started working together 11 years ago at Amazon. We immediately clicked, and then we worked together. Like we built a bunch of cool stuff, including AWS chatbot, which like we built chatbots before LLMs. Um, and then we sort of, I went to do other things. And then we came back again, working on Metacast. And and sort of that sort of partnership that you have with a person, a professional partnership, right? That you really respect, yeah, that you trust. You know, they have your back, you have their back. It's very transparent. It's very sort of open, right? So there is something very human about this. That's why kind of we like working with people that we like, right? Because it's not just about the job. It's not about the process. It's not about the outcomes. It's also about the like, do you actually like being here, right? And I feel like my agents, my Cloud Code, my Copilot, Copilot CLI is like that Arnab. Obviously, the dynamics is different, right? Because in the agents world, like I'm the boss, right? But because I tell them what to do. But it's more like, maybe it's like having a junior, like an intern or like a junior colleague that you really admire and they admire you, and there is a sort of mutual respect, mutual trust, and because sort of everybody knows who's the boss, so there is never a question about that. There is no politics, and it's just like you just work together. It's just like one person is just more experienced than the other, right? And yeah, because like my relationship with Arnab, like we are equals, right? So, but this was like we are not equals, but it's sort of the same sort of human spark in there, like human energy. So, and I think, I believe that like everybody getting an assistant that they can customize to themselves is what really makes us more productive, kind of happier at work and all of that. Um, and my personal belief here, right, is I don't believe as much in sort of chat interfaces that are like ChatGPT or like Claude. That's like the web interfaces or like apps, even though they learn, you can't like really like automate things the way you want. You still have to, yeah, yeah. I think ChatGPT has these projects, right? So you have to like now shift your mental model to like, okay, so there are these projects. I have to like do this prompt. I have to pay for it. Whereas in a coding agent, you can just say, okay, so this markdown file, I want this to work exactly this way, and then you don't have to remind it, and it just works always exactly the same way, right? Um, and so you can sort of build that personality into the bot. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like kind of it's a very long answer to your question, but my point is that I think that sort of, I guess, forcing things on a systemic level, I think is one way to help people on board. But then showing them what's possible, I think is sort of the other way. Then third, when people really get into this, when they actually find something human or something that really drives them, I think that's when you start to get sort of outsized outcomes. Because when they start to collaborate with AI, that is, I think that is the future. I think we are already living in the future, and there is no coming back. I think lots of roles will not necessarily disappear, but they will change a lot. And I guess that's just part of life. That's just how it is.
I love that code, living in the future.
Yeah.
And this will be my last question. What
Yeah.
is the mission beneath all this agentic work for you personally?
The mission.
I think there are two different things. So there are things that I do at work, right? So basically, where we are building kind of agentic systems, and there actually that was, I think, for the first time in my life, I work in an organization, so Microsoft Security, where I really resonate with the mission. I don't, I forgot what exactly the mission was, like exact words, but it's something about like we kind of help protect people, systems in the world, something along those lines, right? So like it's hard to disagree with that mission. It's like it's so noble. I mean, obviously there's business behind that and all that, right? But it's like protecting other people from phishing, from malware, from hackers. That's, I like that. So right. So and we are making this more effective because attackers use AI. We have to counter that with if you don't use AI, like we just can't catch up. If organizations don't use AI, they can't catch up to the attackers, right? So you have to play on the same field, right? So that's why we are doing all of that. We have to be a little bit ahead, or at least not too far behind from hackers, right? So that's kind of at work. So that's why, I believe that those agentic workflows, I kind of don't buy into that idea that people say like, oh, now you can have fewer humans, like AI can replace that. All of those like quotes, I find those dehumanizing and unethical in a way, right? But like doing more with less, I think that's where we are going. At least in my domain, right? So attackers can do a lot more now with AI. So and the organizations who respond to those incidents, they cannot scale with the same rate, right? If they only rely on humans, there are just not enough trained humans. So we are not saying we fire humans and the work is done by AI. No, it's more like these humans have to be able to like counter those attacks, right? So that is sort of one aspect, right? In my personal aspect, I think what I really found in my personal flows and how I use AI and what I do, I there are things that I'm good at and there are things that I'm like good at but don't like doing, and there are also things that I'm just bad at, right? So my goal is to not do the things that I'm bad at and the things that I am good at but I don't like doing, right? So I want to automate, kind of as an engineer, I want to automate the aspects of my life that I don't want to take care of, like my meds intake. For example, I take vitamins and I like have to track that. Oh, I hate doing this, right? So I'm writing little tools, little skills that help me be on top of those things, so I don't forget about them, right? And it can track progress, and I don't have to do like Excel spreadsheets myself. So all of that stuff, right? That is, I find it liberating. So I can scale myself in a way, right? I know it sounds like I sounds like a tech bro, but it's not about that. So it's more just about like I want to just spend more time recording podcast with you, right? Or going to my son's school event, or like taking a hike, as opposed to like sitting and doing, I don't know, some analysis of my expenditures, right? Stuff like that, right? If I can just throw it at AI, it can do it for me faster, while I can be in nature. I think that is what I'm really after. Like I want to do less. Well, I want to do the same with less. Yes, that's the point. It's not about doing more with less. It's about doing this at least the same with less. Anyways, I know we are almost at time, so I'll stop here.
Totally. Like, I loved this conversation so much. There is so many ideas now. I have been brain on how I can automate some of the things I'm doing manually and make myself more productive on a daily basis and be more present with my kids who needs my attention 24/7. So Ilya, thank you for doing podcast with me. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And well, yeah, I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're stopping the recording.
Yeah.